Hey guys, John V from PhoneArena here. You're watching our video comparison between the HTC One M8 and the LG G2. It's the best from LG and HTC, and we're pitting them against one another. We know that the HTC One M8 just landed, so there's some reasons to go with it being the newer handset, but you still can't quite count out the LG G2 just because its packaging is still a good punch. There's no surprise here, the HTC One M8 has the more attractive design thanks to its premium construction and top-notch stylish looks. There's just no comparison. It's metal versus plastic, and the HTC One M8 just has more of an attractive force behind it. Of course, there are some pros and cons with using plastic. The pros include it being the lighter between the two and also having the slimmer profile, but as you can tell here, it's more prone to smudges. Whereas with the metal body of the HTC One M8, it just has a more uniform look to it, it's sturdier, and on top of that, it maintains a cleaner look. There's no arguing that they're both beastly sized handsets, but strangely enough, the LG G2 actually has the larger size screen versus the HTC One M8, but if you look from the profile, you could see that the One M8 is longer. As we all know, the LG G2's power and volume controls are placed in the rear, so it's kind of weird at first, but after a while we get used to it, but they don't feel as good compared to the physical controls on the HTC One M8, the volume controls on the right edge and the power buttons on top. If we take a look around their trims, they pretty much feature the same set of ports. So you have the 3.5mm headset jacks, and you have also their micro USB ports for charging data connectivity and video app functionality, both on the bottom edge. You have the microphone and the speaker at the bottom edge with the LG G2, and of course with HTC One M8, we know that it features two front-firing speakers with HTC Boom sound, and the top edge, it's kind of hard to make it out, but they have their IR blasters, so they double as universal remotes. It's worth mentioning that the HTC One M8 features a handy micro SD card slot, so you have memory expansion. And being true flagship phones, they feature some awesome looking displays. The HTC One M8 features a 5-inch 1080p Super LCD 3 display with Gorilla Glass 3. While the LG G2 packs a 5.2-inch 1080p True HD IPS Plus display with Gorilla Glass 2. Technically on paper, it's the HTC One M8 that has the higher pixel density between the two. It's at 441 pixels per inch versus 423 pixels per inch with the LG G2. But honestly, you're not going to notice a difference. Even when you're looking up very close, they're still super sharp and detailed. As for the rest, they have pretty much similar qualities with their displays, saying that they rely on LCD technology. So for starters, a very similar color reproduction, a little bit of a saturated look with the two of them. Again, gives it a very pleasant look. Strong brightness output with the two, so they're more than visible even in outdoor conditions. And view angles, as we can tell, are pretty much identical. They don't really distort a whole lot. They maintain their sharpness and clarity, so the two are pretty equal in this front. And finally, we'll quickly graze over their cameras. With the HTC One M8, it features a 4-megapixel ultra-pixel camera, while the LG G2 has a larger 13-megapixel one. Similar to how we prefer the overall design of the HTC One M8 over the LG G2, we say the same thing about their user interface. Sense 6.0 just has a better appeal to it. It's cleaner, more modern looking, whereas with the LG skin here, it has just a slightly cartoony look to it. And of course, you'll also have that neat experience with HTC Blink Feed with the HTC One M8. However, LG's customized Android experience has a ton of features. Some are useful, others could be deemed as redundant, but there's a lot more going on with it over the HTC One M8. So the first thing to talk about here is just multitasking. Of course, both handsets, we can jump into the multitasking menu at any time just by doing that, but the LG G2 takes it up a little bit just because you have the various Q-Slide applications on hand. So they're basically mini applications that layer on top of whatever we're doing, so it gives us quick access to them. And on top of that, we have also the slide aside feature, which allows us to save up to 3 applications and jump into them at any time. While the phone is off, we could actually double tap the screen to actually make it turn it on, so we could view things like the time and date and also get right into the interface. And if you want, likewise, we could double tap anywhere there's dead space to turn it off. We could even access the camera from here by just holding down the volume down button for a couple of seconds. Meanwhile, the HTC One M8 has something similar. So basically, while the phone's turned off, we could double tap the screen to actually bring it to life so we could view the time and date and weather conditions. If we want to, we could actually unlock the device by doing a gesture like that, and also access the camera by just tilting the phone into landscape, pressing either of the volume controls, and it gets us right into it. At the end of the day, it's just a matter of personal preference. Either interfaces can appeal to you, but if you like something that has a superior design to it and has tight integration with social networking, you'll really appreciate what the HTC One M8 has to offer with its Sense 6.0 interface. On the other hand, if you want a ton of features, especially multitasking, you're gonna like the LG G2. Being the newer handset, the HTC One M8 benefits by having the most cutting-edge hardware, though to tell you the truth, the performance is really hard to gauge just because they're both really responsive with similar tasks. So with HTC One M8, it features a quad-core 2.3 GHz Qualcomm Snapdragon 801 processor with 2 GB of RAM, whereas with the LG G2, it has the slightly older 2.3 GHz Qualcomm Snapdragon 800 processor with 2 GB of RAM. Like I said, the HTC One M8 might have the upper hand for having the newer hardware, but honestly, the performance is pretty much identical to the two. They're both super snappy and responsive. We have no complaints either about the web browsing performance with the two handsets. Similar results, again, they both pack on 4G LTE connectivity, so you're going to get fast page loads. On top of that, you're going to get very responsive navigational control, so kinetic scrolling, pinch zoom in, they're all buttery smooth. The only difference here is just that the HTC One M8 has a smaller display, but honestly, that's not a deal breaker. We actually prefer the music player of the HTC One M8 just because it has more of an animated dynamic approach. You can see that with the visualizer option enabled right now and its ability to actually display lyrics as a song's being played. As far as the audio quality, there's no question about it too. The HTC One M8's dual front-firing HTC boom sound speakers are just more commanding, has a stronger presence than the LG G2. 1080p high-definition videos play flawlessly with these two handsets, so there's not one we prefer over the other. The only thing different here is just the added features with the LG G2 experience. And again, it pertains to multitasking, so basically we can make it into a mini window and have it layered on top of something else. From our reviews, we already know that these two handsets are capable of shooting some sharp-looking photos. So with the HTC One M8, it features a 4-megapixel ultra-pixel camera. It has a dual LED flash, an f2.0 aperture lens, and has also a backside illuminate sensor. What really stands apart from everything else out there, including the G2, is that it features a secondary camera which is used to actually measure depth information. Meanwhile, the LG G2 packs a higher 13-megapixel autofocus camera, an f2.4 aperture lens, just a single LED flash, but it features both a backside illuminate sensor and optical image stabilization. You're going to have a lot of fun with their respective camera apps. For starters, they have a wide array of different manual controls, so you can adjust a variety of things from ISO to the white balance and even the exposure. However, when it comes to shooting modes, we actually find the LG G2 has some more interesting ones, such as a VR panoramic, a burst shot, you have a beauty shot, you have dual camera feature, shot and clear, whereas with the HTC One M8, as you're shooting photo, you only have different color modes to choose from. If you want some cooler effects, that's something that happens after you take the shot. For all the talk and hype, the HTC One M8's ultra-pixel camera just can't catch a break. The LG G2's 13-megapixel camera is superior, especially in outdoor conditions. Though you might not notice it right away, but when you look into the shots, we definitely notice that there's a better appeal with the LG G2. For starters, you're going to have sharper looking details thanks to that higher count 13-megapixel camera. And on top of that too, you're going to get more accurate color reproduction. As for shooting 1080p videos, the two are pretty much comparable to one another as long as there's sufficient lighting. It's daytime, you're outdoors, you're gonna get a lot of sharp looking visuals and consistent frame rates, but under lower lighting conditions, we actually favor the HTC One M8 more just because with the LG G2, we tend to see a lot more motion blur that we can tolerate. You're gonna get a better call quality performance out of the HTC One M8 just because its earpiece and speakerphone are really loud and powerful, so voices are audible at the same time they're clear and noise free, whereas with the LG G2, the microphone tends to be finicky, so every now and then it tends to transmit voices that are unclear. So this is the breakdown with their batteries. With the HTC One M8, it has the smaller battery capacity, 2600 milliamp hour one versus the larger 3000 milliamp hour battery in the LG G2. It's worth noting too that the G2 has the larger display, so you tend to think that's going to eat up a little bit more juice. But it seems as though the battery optimizations with the HTC One M8 and its newer processor help it to actually have the longer battery life. Now, using our battery benchmark test, we actually get 7 hours and 12 minutes of juice with the HTC One M8, edging out the LG G2's mark of 6 hours and 48 minutes. Seeing that the LG G2 has been out for quite some time now, it's going to benefit by having a lower price point. Now, with a 2-year contract, with most places, you can pick up the LG G2 for $0 for free, whereas with the HTC One M8, you're going to have to fork over that typical $200 amount. Obviously, there's a big difference with their on-contract price point, but we also see it too with their off-contract one as well. Now, here in the US, if you're gonna pick up the LG G2 with no contract, you're gonna fork over $465, which is still better than the $650 cost of the HTC One M8. Now, if we factor in the pricing and also the performance, it seems as though the LG G2 is going to give you a little bit more bang for the buck just because it's a fantastic handset. It performs highly in all areas that you'd expect it to. It takes some nice photos and videos, and you have a rich set of features with the software experience. But don't let that dissuade you from picking up the HTC One M8 either, just because it's the newer handset between the two, so it's sporting newer hardware, and of course its design is just lovely, far better than the LG G2. You're still gonna get a great experience with Sense 6.0. The camera might not be up to snuff, but at least it has a good long battery life and it has great calling quality. So if you guys want to learn more about either handset, you can check out our website, PhoneArena.com. It's John V. Thanks for watching.